Right now, we're facing a man-made disaster of global scale. Our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change.
So that's where I come from. I come from Greenland. The village of my grandmother is about 1 kilometer just west of the big ice. But when I came to visit her land, the wall of the big ice was more 1,500 meters. Now she's less than 50 meters because of the change of climate and the big ice melting. And that little river, which comes from the big ice, most of the summers now, she will carry more than 1 million liters per second of melting ice water. She died. So now I'm the oldest one, so it is now my land, which I have to take care of for the rest of the generations to come. It's right at the edge of the hunting grounds. And it's so interesting because the caribou and the musk oxen migrate from the south and to go north. And then on the other side of the mountain with the blackface, there's a big valley down there where they give birth. They used to give birth on our land, but because of climate change, they moved further north. Because the plants started to grow and blossom before the babies are born, baby animals are born. So they had to adjust. So they went further north to be able to give birth when the buds are just opening up. It's so interesting to watch them, how the adaptability of the animal world to the change of Earth, which you and I, we will have a hard time with. We don't pay attention to the animal world, and we don't pay attention to the plant world. And we just know where the mountains are, where the lakes are. But we don't pay attention to those who are important. Because in my family, that we depend on these animals. And in the beginning of the climate change, baby animals were dying because once the butt is open, it becomes too difficult for the babies to chew. So they were dying until they adjusted themselves and found a better place to give birth. And it's so interesting to watch them and realizing how important it is that you and I, we really need to pay attention to not only to ourselves, not only to the animal world, not only to the plant world, not only to the mineral world, but the elements we live with, or the water, or the fire, and the winds. And the winds brings rain, snow, ice pellets, and everything which the Arctic brings. So it's so important.
We also see what you mentioned in relation with climate change, but also losing species around the world, biodiversity loss. I think that part of that impact is because of we losing our relationship with animals and with nature. So how do you see that? Do you think that's really one of the causes of having all the detrimental effects we see on the environment, so that our connectiveness with animals and with nature is somewhat being lost? And the next question would then be, how should we then restore it? To what extent can we restore our connectiveness with nature and with animals? Is that possible at all? What would be your ideas about that?
So we have many ways to do things differently, because our grandchildren need the nature and the inhabitants of that nature, which is the animal world. We have killed the diversity of animals. And because of climate change, the insects are dying. And of course, when insects die, how can the flowers become flowers? It's impossible for this to become living and regenerate without the insects. Notice that I carry my medicine. This is a claw of the polar bear. That's the biggest four-legged animal in the northern hemisphere. She is, when she stands up, she is 4 meters tall, and they are 4 meters apart. So she is really big. In the old days, the male would be weighing 600-700 kilo. But because of the ice disappearing, because of climate change, now they are down to 500-400 kilo only, because there's no ice to hunt on, which is really sad for the animal world or the polar bear. But they adapt. Now we have met grizzly bear and polar bear mating, and a new species of polar bear is now living, who can live on the ice and live on land. So the adaptability of the animal world is wonder to observe. So because of climate change, the animals are now moving away from where they used to go. But most importantly, climate change would also change where animals live. And we are losing species every single day on Earth. And you and I, we are the guilty ones, because we didn't think of it when we created industrial development in big scale. And we took the potato fields instead of trees, or corn fields instead of trees and bushes where animals can live.
The amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now is 50% higher than it was in 1900.
Well, I mean, if we really want to stop climate change and stop our planet from coming to the place where we can't live on it anymore, Mother Earth will continue, we have to understand that 80% of all greenhouse gases are being created by these mass farming of animals. 87% of all greenhouse gases. Now that's practical. So you have a choice. Do you continue to this mass slaughter in the most horrific ways of our animal relatives and our relatives of the waters, which is happening as well? I mean, we're just emptying everything, emptying it. Do you do that? Then, you know, again, I come back to this, I believe the foundation of what's unfolding today on Mother Earth, this new whole stage of development of our human family, and that is oneness. How everything is related to everything else, and how when you change something, it impacts something else. That you can really say the hurt of one is the hurt of all, because we all are related. In the honor of all, the uplifting of all, the healing of all is the healing of one, or the healing of one is the healing of all. So I think this understanding of the interrelationship of all life is so important to...
But do we have time enough to reconnect again to our fellow living creatures and to nature in general to avoid things like climate change, biodiversity loss? Or what is your idea about that? How should we manage that? Are we already too late in the whole process? Because
our sacred prophecies are very clear about the process we're in. And that really how far we go before we really wake up as a human family is our choice. We can choose if we wish, because we've been given that freedom of choice. We can choose if we wish to continue this path, and what's going to happen is just going to deepen in crisis and destruction. Because if you don't change what you're doing and continue to do it, you get the same results. And these are the results, and they're not going to change. with this paradigm we're in right now. At the same time, we can see we're much closer to it during this coronavirus, and for a time, there's a time. And yet we can see now again how coming out of it, again, there's talk of war. You know, there's all these partisan politics globally going on and so forth and so on. So while some of us are learning our lessons and making the changes we have to make, and hopefully we decide enjoy making them, which is even better. But sometimes you have no choice, as we had here. That it may be some more things we're facing, because everything's related to everything else. So we have this coronavirus, great, you know, not great, but it has happened. But we have to understand it's also connected to economics. And the economics are, there's a lot of people now are starving in the world, physically starving. And then you have, now we're coming out of it, they're immediately talking about more sanctions on Iran. And, you know, so have we learned our lesson? Have we learned our lesson that it's when we come together in unity and diversity and understand that's the very nature of this universe we live in? I mean, this universe could not even hold itself together unless it was coherent. I really loved what Bertrand Russell said. I don't know if he was Aldous Huxley, either one says. He said, gravity is metaphysical love. Gravity is metaphysical love. So this gravity that holds all this together is oneness. And so, you know, we're acting completely opposite of what the universe is really founded in oneness. We're acting like, you know, we're somehow in our own little silos and you know, we can bomb somebody over, they're going to hurt us, or, you know, it's not true, because this material world even is an illusion. You know, Crazy Horse so beautifully said, in essence, this is the world of shadows from the world of light.
Near Mount Kilimanjaro, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, in fact, I've been there once. So actually, I've been around there and climbed part of the mountain to the top. And that's, of course, a very special area in Africa, the region around Mount Kilimanjaro, with all the different climates and all the animals living there. Do you see any difference there? Because also for climate change, a lot of things are changing probably near Mount Kilimanjaro as well. Wildlife and these kind of things. Do you experience that as well? And how do you see the roles humans play in that change?
This is a role why I'm here today. I talked about the Kilimanjaro. I climbed Kilimanjaro in 2005. And before the day of climbing, in the evening hours of now in the 2005, we had to appreciate nature. I was one of the people who asked the mountain to receive us, and even prepared the prayer. I said the prayer, but also a song that Kilimanjaro, we are visiting you as our elder. Do please receive us in peace and harmony. And we were 17 people who were supposed to summit, and one lady didn't climb, and the first day we climbed, the one person also didn't manage, and the second day another two persons left, and I was one of the people who summited the mountain. and we came to appreciate. But when it comes to the relation between us and the mountain, I defined in the morning that with the community members that the mountain is not for us alone. It's for it is a global creature, and they need to be protected. The ice is falling, and the mountain is an active volcanic mountain, and if the ice get less and less, there's a possibility of eruption. But also the clearing of forests will affect the mountain, and this in return, the mountain will also affect our lives negatively. And one of the clouds that I was presenting habit live in that mountain. This is one of the importance of keeping the mountains like ecosystems like Kilimanjaro, the biodiversity in it, but it is being reflected by our life, and the mountain in return reflects us, and sometimes is negative, sometimes is positive. But this is a kind of relationship we have with mountains and with nature, biodiversity, and all this.
If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon. The world's people have spoken. Their message is clear. Time is running out.
We have so much to learn how we can do things better for all of us on Earth.